I'm Marcia Lehman, and I'm a Knox County Master Gardener. Today we're pruning a lilac, which is a multi-stemmed shrub that grows much like a cane shrub. So there are several important points. One is you take out several of the older, thicker canes every year, and we'll pull this back and show you. But the other thing is it's really important to prune this right after it finishes flowering. And when I get back up to work on this, we'll show you why that is so important. But the first thing you really want to do is what I'm doing, is come in here to the bottom and look at how many stems you have. And we have some little spindly ones down here. So I'm going to take those off first, as low as I can go. And my general rule of thumb is if it's at least the size of a number 2 pencil, I'll let it live till next year and see how it does. But if it's smaller than that, it's coming out. And right here in front of me, well, that broke. That's definitely dead. But you want to come in and look at the stems that you have. There's another spindly one. And we've got some in the back here that you probably can't see as well. So trust me, I'm just going after the spindly things. But you want to pull things around and assess them. So one of the things, you'll see that these limbs want to rub into each other. And as I'm doing that, what I have determined is most of that is coming off of this centermost stem. So we're going to stop and we'll pull these branches back so you can see. But I'm going to make one significant cut to take out an older, thicker stem, and then we'll resume working. But making one cut is going to make such a difference in what you see in this shrub. We've pulled the side branches back, and as we follow in here, this mass is attached to, down here at the base, is where I'm going to make a cut. Now that's a little bigger than I can make with my loppers. So I'm going to make a cut a little higher up, leave a stub and come back and clean that up with the folding saw. But to get that out of the way, one cut, and that is going to open it up. And this is attached to the other side of it. So if I take that out, I've now given myself a little more room to get in here with the folding saw and make that cut, a cleaner cut. And you don't have to watch me make the cut, but I'll show you where I'm going to cut. These are 2 newer canes we're going to keep, so I don't want to hit those, but I'm going to take this off way down here. So I'll start we're making that one cut down here low, removed this much material from the shrub. One cut. So on a multi-stem or cane shrub, it's why it's best to come in and start at the bottom, because otherwise I may have made 6, 7, 8 cuts before I worked my way down and said, oh yeah, I really should cut it down here. So we'll cut it low and get that mass out of the way. And you watched me make the first cut a little higher up with my loppers, and then I came in very carefully to make that lower cut with the folding saw, and we'll zoom in and show you what the base of that looked like. I don't think that's dead, but I don't think that dark spot in the middle is particularly healthy. I think it just comes with age, and so that was our candidate to remove. So we removed some little spindly things, and we took out one major cut, and then we're going to leave the rest of this and then start to work on the upper part. So we'll pause, and I'll stand up and we'll get to work on some of the higher stuff. We made that one big cut, and then in the process of looking at it again, I reached through and leaned on some dead stuff, which just proceeded to break, so we'll take that off. But then we noticed that we have a second branch here, probably the second biggest one, and we decided we're going to take that out as well. So that's another lopper cut, and in this case I can get all the way down with the loppers on this one. It's not quite as thick as that first one, but look at all this vegetation we're removing with a single cut. Now we really can see into this shrub. And the next thing we want to look at is there's some dead, like right here, which I'll prune off. Absolutely nothing growing on that. And that's a case of, I just nipped that one because I saw it. It was in my face, so to speak. But I want to come back to talking about some of the blossoms and why it's important to prune this as soon as it finishes flowering. Every article, every reference I checked said prune immediately after flowering, but nobody said why. And in fact, one reference said, as soon as you see the first flower, mark your calendar for 2 weeks and prune 2 weeks after you see the first flower. Well, I don't know about you, but if I've got a nice flowering window that's a little bit more than 2 weeks, I don't want to take it off. So I think the suggestion of pruning as soon as it's done flowering is the rule to follow. Now, if we can zoom in here, I'll put my hand up here for some contrast. This is what the spent blossom looks like. And if we don't get to it right away, we had one earlier. Oh, no, here it is. Right up against my t-shirt. These spent flowers are now starting to produce seed pods. Any shrub producing seed uses a lot of plant energy. And so the reason to prune it immediately after flowering is to make sure that the plant doesn't waste its energy making seed pods. So we want to take that off down at the next node. And that's what we're going to do from this point forward. We are going to come in, and the rule is find where the flowers were and come back to the next leaf node, and that's where you make the snip. So in this case, I'm coming back to here. In this case, we'll come back to here. And this can get to be a bit tedious. So what we're going to do, now that we showed you how to make a couple of those, is we're going to stop the camera, we're going to do that cleanup, and then come back and show you the rest of the steps. We have now removed all of the spent flowers, and as you can see in this particular example, clearly the flowers are gone, but it is beginning to form seed pods. So it's important to get all these removed so that it doesn't drain the energy of the plant, and by removing these, the energy can go into producing more foliage. So the last step, and we were doing a little bit of this while we were removing the spent blossoms, but the last is just to come in here and find anything that may be dead and snip that off. I have a habit of doing that while I'm cleaning up the spent blossoms, but I wasn't 100% focused on it, so there's still a few more little things. And in this particular case, most of them are pretty little things. I mean, really spindly little, but they have absolutely no leaves on them. And again, well, that one just fell off when I bumped it, so that's dead. That broke. And so, yeah, just come through and give it one last once over. Again, you know, pulling the branches around is not going to hurt it. It allows you to see what's going on in here. And in the back here, where it doesn't get quite as much sunshine, gets a little bit of shade, there's a little bit more brown, a little bit more dead. And that just kind of goes with the territory. So again, the lilacs are more of a northern shrub, where the growing season is shorter, which may be why they start to produce seed pods right away. But the bigger issue is they don't really like the humid summers of East Tennessee. And probably, well, they can get some disease, but probably the #1 thing that impacts them is powdery mildew. So if it's been a hot and humid summer, the humidity in particular, and you come out and your lilac looks like somebody sprinkled baby powder all over it, that's powdery mildew. And you can treat it, but it doesn't cure it. It may stop it from getting worse. It doesn't really kill the plant, but it certainly doesn't look good when it has all that splotchy powder all over it. So I think now we are done with it. Well, every time I say I think I'm done, I see one more little dead piece. So we'll clean that up. And that's just the case. Every time you go to the garden, you should look at your plants for the 4 Ds, the dead, diseased, damaged, and dysfunctional. And, you know, always carry your pruners with you because those are usually fairly small. But now I do think we're done with this lilac. And having put the energy back into the plant rather than seed pods, it can now start to form buds for next year's flowers, and it'll have every bit as nice of spray of flowers as it had this year. So that's it. Pruning lilacs can be a challenge, growing them in East Tennessee because of our humid summers. But if you can find a variety that does well for you, or you have a spot that it likes, by all means grow it. And keep it well pruned, because that'll keep it healthy. So with that, I hope you learned something today, and we thank you for joining us.